I call the Honourable Member David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to revoked. I've been revoked. I just wanted to make some comments on what Grant Robinson was just talking about, because obviously, in some ways, the whole possibility of this clause being enacted, and Grant Robinson couldn't find any history of that actually happening. I would consider it very, very unlikely. And clearly the reason for that is because in many ways, these people are self-selecting. To get to that level, they have to be of the highest quality. They are judged by their peers. And one of the interesting thing of looking through the various types of membership and the way that the activities are carried out within the Royal Society is the presence of peers, judging peers or measuring peers to ensure that we are talking of the highest quality. So I can't imagine, Mr. Chair, the possibility that somebody could be, in a sense, thrown out from this position unless there was a pretty serious type of an occasion that would cause that. Could only think that if that was the case, it would have to do with science and the way that they conducted themselves science. I mean, I'm thinking of not conducting their research in a way that was in accordance with the highest scientific principles, and possibly something like plagiarism or something along those lines, which might create or cause a scientist of that standing, given that they are of that standing, to be in that illustrious group, to be able to have that title taken away from them. But I also wanted to, Mr. Chair, I also just wanted to touch on the clause itself, because the clause itself, what it does do here in clause 13, section 18.2 is amended by omitting Academy Council and substituting Academy Executive Committee. And while in some ways this is administrative, it's very perfunctory, because this council is going to have the powers to be able to take these sorts of decisions. I mean, I think it's worth looking at the structure, and the new structure in particular. The new structure is set out in the submission by the Royal Society itself. It's a supplementary submission that we heard at the Education and Science Select Committee. Looks at the new structure of the council and notes that the Academy Council, which was the name which has been up until now used, is going to be changed to the Academy Executive Committee. That's proposed in the bill to avoid confusion with the Council of the Society itself, and that's also provided for in the Act. The restructure is noted in the bill. It's set out there, and it's also set out, Mr. Chair, in some of the explanation. But the new structure of the council is one president, 6 selected vice presidents. They each have specific responsibilities. They have specific responsibilities in biological life sciences, in physical sciences, mathematics, engineering and technology, social sciences, which is important in the context of the humanities, as we're discussing here, international education, public awareness and outreach, of which I think, to be perfectly honest, Mr. Chair, we are doing some of the job of the Royal Society tonight, because anybody who is watching this is watching this through the various clauses and parts that we have been debating in this House, will come away with an extraordinarily detailed understanding of what the Royal Society is all about. And I think that that's a useful byproduct. I mean, in fact, it's more than a byproduct, actually. It's actually I actually think it's part of the role of government. And all of us have talked about the eminence of these people. And just recently, Mr. Chair, I mean, reflect on the fact that the 3 most trusted New Zealanders are all scientists. And they are all, actually maybe not Ray Avery, but certainly two of the three, are all fellows of the Royal Society. So we have these... Mr. Chair?
I call the honourable member David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, the point I'm making here, Mr. Chair, is that the Royal Society is a hugely prestigious organisation, and we've talked about this at length before. It is to become a fellow or a member, or in particular an honorary member, and I appreciated the explanation that Grant Robinson gave about the difference between those different types of membership in response to the question he was asked. Very highly prestigious organisation, and an organisation which is structured in a way to ensure that the highest standards are maintained. So just to go through the new structure of the council, as I was talking about before, we have the president, the six elected vice presidents with their specific responsibilities, one elected representative of the regional constituents organisations. And Mr. Chair, this is the one area where we did receive a great deal of submissions on this bill, and I have to say most of them were unhappy about the inclusion of humanities into the bill, and they came from the regional organisations in particular. They were unhappy with bringing humanities into the bill, as has been spoken of before, because they felt that this was going to, in a sense, dilute the scientific nature of the organisation, which they believed should remain very much the preeminent science organisation. I think the arguments laid out by the Royal Society and its various from the Ministry of Research, Science and Technology, as it was then. It's now Ministry of Science and Innovation, but then it was Morse, was that the move forward was going to greatly enhance the Royal Society, this move to bring humanities in, and not diminish from it. In fact, in many ways, what might be diminished, given the eminence and the gravitas of the Royal Society itself, is actually the humanities might be submerged amongst the science. I think there's more to worry about in a sense of a sort of a, not a takeover exactly, but certainly a crowding out of, if you like, of the humanities rather than the science themselves. But as we've argued and debated in many of the clauses in this legislation up to now, we believe that the humanities can only enhance the work of the Royal Society. And in many of the other Royal Societies across the world where they have done this, in fact, it has also enhanced the ability of those Royal Societies to function and to make a really valuable contribution, not only to science and intellectual endeavour, but into the policy arena as well, which I think ultimately, for example, for us as politicians, we very much appreciate. So just coming back to the new structure of the council that's going to be amended under this clause, Clause 13, as I say, it's Section 18.2 is amended by omitting Academy Council and substituting Academy Executive Council. Coming back to that point, that is, yes, on the one hand, a rather administrative or a technical point, but nevertheless an important change, and particularly an important change given the type of changes and the alterations that have taken place around the various memberships of the Royal Society. So, Mr. Chair, I just want to wrap up there to point that once again the nature of the society is, as Grant Robinson said, it's very difficult. It would be very difficult to imagine this particular clause ever having to be used in the legislation. This is part 8. This is 18 of the revocation of membership or fellowship. It can happen at any time. I haven't been able to find, like Mr. Robertson, I haven't been able to find a single incidence of this actually happening. I don't believe if it did happen, it would probably make the headlines, frankly, because it is the Royal Society is of such gravitas and standing in our community in New Zealand that this certainly wouldn't go unnoticed, and it would be for a crime, an academic crime that would be very serious.
Call the honourable member Louise Upston.
I move that the question be now put.
No. I'm going to call the honourable member Steve